Hello everyone, Likely Matt here. Now, I am a huge fan of the Blue Blur. He is absolutely one of my favorite platformers ever, and I've played tons of Sonic games. And I finally decided to make a tier list of every single mainline Sonic game, going from the original Sonic the Hedgehog back in 1991 all the way to Sonic X Shadow Generations back in 2024. Keep in mind this is just my opinion, you can share your own in the comments. And without further ado, let's dive into the video. The first game on the list is Sonic the Hedgehog 1 for the Sega Genesis. This is the start to the franchise, and oh boy, is this a pretty good game, but it aged a little like milk. On one hand, the absolute peak of this is definitely when you start the game in Green Hill Zone. This is iconic for so many reasons. I mean, it's so fast-paced and fun, brightly colored, and vibrant compared to most platformers at the time. It was revolutionary, and obviously other 2D Sonic games later down the line would improve on the formula, but for a first game, this is absolutely amazing. One minor thing, there's 6 zones, and out of all of them, 3 of them kinda suck. Marble Zone is slow and admittedly not really that interesting, and Labyrinth Zone is easily the worst Sonic zone I've ever put through because the water physics in Sonic games are, for the most part, god-awful. And then of course the other 2, Starlight Zone and Springyard Zone, those are pretty decent zones all things considered. So all around, 50-50 zones ain't too bad I guess. But overall, physics-wise, it's revolutionary with the speed and the platforming, and it's super fun. But there's a lot of level design complications and bad enemy placements. So, I don't think it's perfect, but at the very least, it's an amazing start to the franchise, and has a lot of great qualities. So, B tier is a pretty fitting place for the first game. The next game on the list is Sonic the Hedgehog 2, the direct sequel. And holy cow, does this game improve so much that the original had. Not only is the level design better and the enemy placements are no longer bullcrap, but holy cow, they even added in some really important improvements. The Spin Dash finally got added, which is now a staple in the Sonic franchise, making getting some speed way easier. On top of that, the Chaos Emeralds have been improved from being random collectibles that you don't actually need unless you want the quote-unquote good ending of the game, now get you Super Sonic, an empowered version of Sonic that is practically invincible minus drowning, crushing, and pits. And oh my god, they even added Tails in this version, which is a brand new character, pretty neat. Plus, we have some of the best zones we've ever seen. Casinopolis Zone, Chemical Plant Zone, and I think this is probably one of my favorite 2D Sonic games ever, and it really goes to show because it's also the first one I played. This is easily one of the best Genesis games we've had in a while, and while there are some minor hindrances, the future games can improve off it. I'd say this is a solid A tier though. Next up is Sonic CD. While one half of the team was working on Sonic 2, the other half was working on CD, and it became kind of its own thing. Not only does this game have the same sprites and no spin dash, but it also has the peel out, which is pretty cool, but does not actually damage enemies. To be fair to Sonic CD, it has a lot going for it. Again, better story than Sonic 1, and on top of that, much better stages than Sonic 1. It also has the Time Stones, which aren't like the Chaos Emeralds. They allow you to go back to levels and do other things, so that actually adds a lot of great qualities to the Time Stones. But admittedly, even though there's all these great qualities, and it introduced us to Metal Sonic, which is one of the best Sonic characters, it also has a lot of issues, specifically with the levels themselves. Oh my god, these levels are so big, and busy, and chaotic, and the theming and names are so weird. It feels like a giant plane splatter with random words for names. None of them are places. Tidal Tempest, Collision Chaos, Palm Tree Panic, Wacky Workbench. They're not names, they're just random words. And none of them are actual themings. Palm Tree Panic looks a bit like Green Hill Zone and Star Speedway as well, a speedway, but I don't even know what the other ones are supposed to be. I still believe it deserves a B tier at the very least. And finally for the Genesis games is Sonic 3 and Knuckles, because I'm not doing the individual games. This is a combined game, and the combined game is the best Genesis game. Oh my god, it's so good. First off is the features it adds. Not only is there transitions in between zones to add context to the story, but also there's save states, so it's not a game you have to beat in one go. You can actually take your time and have breaks. Plus the story is much improved with Knuckles the Echidna, the Guardian of the Master Emerald, finally introduced. And obviously, Eggman tricked him into thinking Sonic was a thief and tries to interfere throughout your adventure. And yeah, it's a pretty great game. So, the zones are absolutely great, and none of them stuck out to me as particularly bad. Plus, with stages like Flying Battery Zone, Angel Island Zone, and Sky Sanctuary Zone, there's some amazing levels as well, making for this to be one of the best Genesis games ever made. Holy cow, it's great. So, I think it's only fitting that this game gets an A tier. Sonic Adventure 1 came out in 1999, and the first Sonic the Hedgehog game to go fully 3D. Now that may not be entirely true, but we're gonna ignore the other quote-unquote 3D games. This was the first proper game that really introduced the 3D Sonic format, and I think it does a pretty great job. Has 6 playable characters, and most of them are actually really great, even though I did not like the cat fishing. I really enjoyed the story and piecing together what's going on with this giant gooey monster, and speaking of which, I think Chaos is actually a pretty decent villain. And even though the graphics have aged a little, it is still a great Sonic game that introduced the 3D format, and gameplay-wise has aged pretty decently. So I think it's only fitting that Sonic Adventure 1 gets an S tier. Holy cow, they peaked with this game. Not only is the normal Sonic gameplay just great, but they also had the mech and treasure hunter levels, which were really good. The story is also the best we've ever seen yet. Oh my god, it was so good. And Shadow the Hedgehog's debut in this game was peak. Radical Highway was an amazing introduction to this character, and his emotional story is so good. Plus, you get some of the best music in the franchise. I don't even need to address stuff like Green Forest, Metal Harbor, City Escape, and the banger that is Live and Learn at the end of the game. It has so much quality. And while it has aged a bit since it has been 24 years since the game came out, this game has aged wonderfully with great gameplay, a great story, and all 3 gameplay styles being fun and control really well. Heck, I don't even mind the graphics aren't great. This is my ideal Sonic game. Absolutely S tier. The Advance Trilogy. Technically this is in the adventure games because it takes place sometime before or after the adventure games, not entirely certain. But either way, these are great 2D Sonic games, taking the modern style and converting it into what the Genesis games probably would have made them. Sure, the screen crunch on the Game Boy was a bit iffy, but I don't really care. I think that it's great anyway. I loved playing these 3 games, and they're all basically the same thing. And it was really great having these games, because we hadn't had a 2D game since the Genesis, and I think it's really good that they made these, and they were really well made. Great gameplay, and it didn't need an overcomplicated story. So I think it's worthy that they all go in B tier. Sonic Heroes takes a lot of characters, and I mean a lot. And they all have different abilities and unique gameplay styles that weave well into the level design. And to be completely honest, I actually really liked the villain, with Metal Sonic making a nice return from Sonic CD. Even though I like Adventure 1 and 2 more, I loved Sonic Heroes for having a ton of characters, a decent story, and some pretty great gameplay anyway. So I think it's only fitting that this game gets a solid A tier. From an absolutely great and dark story, really fitting the vibe of the character, to an absolutely great gameplay style of having multiple stories fitted depending on what you do, either being the good guy, the bad guy, or saying screw both sides and just go neutral and keep the emeralds for yourself. Having Black Doom as a villain and really getting into Shadow's past is really cool, and adds a lot to his character. Plus, having the guns as a gameplay mechanic is pretty awesome. Badass game, pretty good controls, great level design, and an awesome concept, and I love the story options, so this game deserves an A tier. It sucks. I wish I could say that this game was at least enjoyable for me, but even I can't defend this mess of a game. I mean, the story was okay, I suppose, and getting to play as 3 different hedgehogs having unique gameplay styles was pretty neat. The problem is that all of them control like garbage. I mean, I can barely handle this speed section in the first level. The way it looks is also a bit off. The humans easily are the worst part, but looking at certain characters just doesn't feel right with the way they move and animate. Ugh. Obviously, that's not the main problem, but gameplay, it ain't great. It's just absolutely baffling to me that they didn't give enough time for this game. And it is very obvious with all the history of why this game failed, but I'll leave you to find that out for yourself. Probably just Google it. But I think this is probably a D tier Sonic game. There may be worse Sonic games, there probably is, but out of all the games we reviewed, this is probably one of the worst ones. I love the Wii, but the fact they had to split up the Sonic team just so one half could be working on 06, and they had to split another just to cash in on the Wii's success and make a completely different game, doesn't work at all. The Wiimote tilting does not make this game easy to control at all. I have nothing good to say about this game. Nothing about the story, the music, it just doesn't work with me. Easily, and the worst of the bunch, F tier. Sonic Unleashed is actually a really good Sonic game in my opinion. People sometimes give this game a little bit of crap, but honestly it actually is pretty underrated. It is a terrific Sonic game. On the consoles that it's on, Xbox 360 and PS3, it does run a little bit poorly on occasions, with the frame rate going to an absolute plummet, but for the most part it is very fun to go around the daytime levels, which is normal Sonic gameplay. It is so fun, the stages are really well designed and really unique, and it's so fun boosting around. It really just proves that the boost mechanic can be utilized in the correct way. The only problem is that the other half of this game is the werewolves stuff, or the werehog stuff. Now, personally, I'm actually a defender of this stuff. Sometimes the combat's good when you actually learn how to do all the combos. The problem is that you're very, very slow, and it kind of slows down the game a bit. But on the bright side, the story was actually really great, and this game really showed that they had a lot of great ideas, even though some of them didn't work out. But it's still worthy of an S tier, in my opinion. Sonic and the Black Knight has this King Arthur story, and Sonic has a sword. And honestly, I actually think it's much better. Better music, cooler moments with Sonic literally becoming an awesome knight at the end. And obviously, the gameplay is a little bit more improved. It is still a bit of a janky Wii title, but on the bright side, it is a lot better to control. And the story's a bit better, and I think that it is overall better than Secret Rings, but still not as good as anything else. So I think a C tier is probably the best I can give this game. This was one of the first Sonic games in a long time that truly felt like a good Sonic game to near everyone in the fan base. It was a great game and people really enjoyed it despite it again being only on the Wii. Plus all the wisps were really fun and the music was so good, a great soundtrack. Amazing visuals for weak hardware. And dear God, they actually nailed the boost formula again. But there are admittedly some issues, I will point out. One of the biggest ones being the worst story and awful dialogue.
Baldy nose hair!
Yeah, the dialogue and story were not good. There was basically no story, and there was basically no good dialogue. It was all bad. Besides that, this game has some great visuals, great music, and I loved the 3D gameplay. But it wasn't admittedly cool. It was an absolutely fantastical journey, but not like other Sonic games where Sonic's a cool guy. Then again, that's just me. I think this game is still amazing, so I'm gonna give this a B tier. Sonic Generations is still one of the best 3D Sonic games ever. It's baffling how a game 14 years old is still one of the best Sonic games I have ever played. I mean, it has some of the best level design and taking inspiration from Sonic's past. Speed Highway, Green Hill Zone, Chemical Plant Zone, Sky Sanctuary Zone, and City Escape. There are so many great stages here. Even the worst of the worst is still good. The boss fights are also really good, minus the final boss. That one was not fun at all. And on top of that, the story and dialogue are much better than Colors, but still not as good as what we got before, but definitely better than Colors. So that's a step in the right direction. This game is somehow still one of the best 3D Sonic games ever, and it really shows. It has so much personality and charm and quality, and holy cow, it works so well with the modern and classic Sonic. Classic Sonic works really well even if it's not one-to-one with the Genesis games, because the spin dash can send you flying. And modern Sonic controls super well, just like regular modern Sonic like Colors and Unleashed. This is truly peak, and I have to put this in S tier. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, Sonic 4 is probably the biggest insult to Sonic we've had so far. The only reason this has Sonic 4 for a name is probably because, I don't know, maybe they just decided that instead of having a crappy mobile game, they could have Sonic 4 to market it and make people want to buy it. This is not the real Sonic 4. No matter what Sega would say, I don't think that should count. It is reusing so much stuff. There's not a single original level or gimmick. There isn't a single good thing about this game in terms of graphics or gameplay, because no, it doesn't control like the Genesis games. It just feels like a mobile game that didn't have enough time to actually be developed into something good, and then they just slapped Sonic 4 for a title for money's sake, so this at best gets a D. Lost World is a game that takes way too much inspiration from Mario. First thing, the game is way slower. This is the first Sonic game where there's a run button you have to hold, which is not comfortable at all. Secondly, it is also very much like Mario Galaxy in terms of level design. This planet and tube-shaped levels is kind of obvious. Another thing is the story is very uninteresting, and oh my god, the villains, none of them are, they're all just pretty generic. And to make matters worse, the levels are just not unique. Normally in Sonic games you have completely brand new levels with their own names and themings, but here you have green, grassy plain level, and desert level, and snow level, and lava level. It's so bland. The level design is so much slower than it should be for normal Sonic. I mean, Sonic doesn't even have to go fast, but it's not fun in this game. And it doesn't help that there's no actual good stuff about this game I can say. The dialogue is bad. The story isn't good. The villains are bad. I cannot say anything good about this game because there's nothing it necessarily does well at. Honestly, it's pretty much just a mediocre game with nothing great to say about it. It's definitely a C tier. Look, 06 wasn't the absolute worst, and neither was Secret Rings. Heck, not even stuff like Sonic 4 was an insult. No, this game takes that cake. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric is not a fun game. It is so underdeveloped, and it makes a whole lot of sense, because this game was supposed to be on better consoles, but was exclusive to the Wii U. So, this game is a buggy, glitchy, unfinished mess with awful Scooby-Doo-ass dialogue, and the absolute worst gameplay I've ever had to endure. It is there's barely any speed, it's mostly tempo run where you're not even pressing anything. Heck, sometimes the game just kind of plays itself. The story is bad, the villain is bad, everything is so poorly written and executed. All to tie in with the show that was mediocre, and somehow the game was the absolute worst part to come out of Boom. This is easily the worst Sonic game I've ever had to play, and I would not recommend this to anyone because it's so bad. And oh my god, I wouldn't force anyone to play this, not even my worst enemies, because it's so glitchy, unfinished, nothing like a normal Sonic game should be, and dear heavens, has so much ideas and none of it worked. Even if it was on good hardware, it still would have sucked. Absolutely the bottom of F tier. Next up is Sonic Mania, and I'm gonna be honest, this is the best 2D Sonic game. I don't care what anyone else says, this is the best 2D Sonic game. It takes a lot of old levels while also introducing some brand new ones, adding a fresh coat of paint, some brand new gimmicks, and different level design. And overall, they basically improved all of the old levels and made the new levels that they added in even better. On top of that, they also introduced the drop dash, which is a lovely welcome into the gameplay. And on top of that, it visually looks great, gameplay-wise it's great. Heck, even the special stages are at their peak here. It's baffling to me that they managed to take everything that I wanted in a 2D Sonic game. Speed, good platforming, fun special stages, a simple yet intriguing story, great characters with various abilities that make the gameplay unique, and obviously, some amazing levels, great soundtrack. Oh boy, it is great to hear some of those remixes. This game is the perfect package for any 2D Sonic game, and I hope that everything that follows up will aspire to be this good. This is easily S tier. Sonic Forces should have been great. I mean, the hype for this game was pretty monumental because it looked like a really good game. Unfortunately, it sucked. Somehow they managed to ruin a perfectly good story that would have actually been nice, but instead of it being serious and enjoyable, it's just the same garbage we've been getting this whole time. On top of that, the gameplay is not great. Classic Sonic is very poor. He doesn't control like the Genesis games, and he's not like the Generations. Because it's on a new engine, it didn't actually turn out well, and Classic Sonic controls like garbage. Modern Sonic levels are a straight line and you boost the whole way there, and it's pretty bland, honestly. The custom character levels are a bit better, but only by a small margin. There are some levels that are actually pretty decent, Sunset Heights being a particular highlight, and Infinite is a cool villain, but he is underutilized. Heck, most of the returning villains don't even get boss fights. Overall, this is just a Sonic game that could have been great, but in reality, it didn't get the proper necessary things it deserved. There were only 3 people working on the level design, and none of them had worked on any main Sonic games. This game had no chance, but it should have been good, but it didn't. I don't think it's the worst Sonic game, and I can't really hate it, but I think a C tier is the absolute max this game deserves. I got to play Sonic Frontiers at launch, and I'm gonna be honest, this might actually be my favorite Sonic game. The open world is actually really fun to go around with. despite platforms appearing from nowhere because of the render distance. It controls really well, and I love the stages. This game is like 75%, maybe even like more like 90% 3D, but there is a handful of 2D sections I like. The boss fights are also the best we've ever seen in a Sonic game. So engaging, so fun, control well, and oh my god, they made Super Sonic so fun. And it's so cool. It is truly the best boss fights we could have asked for. And, oh my god, I actually really liked the story here. It is a little bit harder to pick up on all the details unless you're willing to search for them, and you don't get as much if you don't, but if you do, you get quite a great story. And I think it's pretty solid, all things considered. It even has some absolutely great combat. Like, that's a new thing. Combat in a Sonic game with combos, and did it well? That's awesome. While the open world isn't perfect, and while not every level's great, I still love this game, and I think it deserves so much love. It is so underrated. Absolutely S tier, in my opinion. So, Sonic Superstars is kind of like Sonic 1 in the sense that it has great qualities, but a couple of pieces of garbage. The battle mode is unnecessary and kind of lame. The metal system is so annoying and repetitive, and it is just shoved in your face. The special stages are alright, I guess. And, I don't know. Some levels just have some bad level design. But there is actually some pretty great qualities to be had here. I love some of these stages. The music's pretty great, the models and overall vibe look immaculate. You can switch characters whenever you want, so it's really flexible. And on top of that, I actually really enjoyed myself playing it. It's just that some things like the Emerald power-ups are so unnecessary, when this game is already fine on its own. Not every stage is perfect, admittedly, and again, the Emerald power-ups kind of ruin any challenge the game had, but then again, the final boss kind of needed these to make it balanced. But, you know what, it's not bad, but it's not great either. I'd say B tier is the best I can give it. I'm going to be perfectly honest, this is probably the best Sonic game ever made. I know Sonic Adventure 2 and Mania are absolutely amazing, but this somewhat blows that out of the water. Not only does it take an amazing character like Shadow and combine him with some of the coolest abilities like Doom Spear, Doom Blast, Doom Surf. Somehow they made a Manta Ray Surf ability good. Doom Morph and Doom Wings. Oh boy, was that cool. All the levels are taken from Shadow's past. Space Colony Arc, Sunset Heights from episode Shadow, we got Rail Canyon from Heroes, we got a lot of Radical Highway, and Kingdom Valley, and okay, Chaos Island wasn't actually taken from Shadow, but whatever, it was still a fun level. All around, this game is so fun. Plus, the levels are dedicated way more into having one be 3D and the other be 2D. The first act's always going to be 3D and the second will be 2D. But that's not always a guarantee. Sometimes it's 3D. So, it's a mostly 3D Sonic game, which is supposed to be what it is. The levels are taken from Shadow's past, which are amazing, by the way. Graphically looks amazing, has cinematic and cutscenes that look amazing. Some absolutely banger boss fights, and so much speedrun potential and so much fun. This also has an amazing and emotional story. It is easily the best thing we've gotten in years. S tier, hands down. Yeah, and also we have Sonic Generations here, but that's just another good part of it. The Shadow Generations is easily better, though. And that is it. All 25 mainline Sonic games I wanted to review. Here's the final tier list. Honestly, I think this is a pretty good tier list considering how I only managed to get up to Sonic X Shadow Generations in 2024. Obviously, future games will come into play, and I did ignore a couple of spin-off games, but then this video would be an hour long. So I think I'm pretty happy with this. If you have your own opinions, feel free to talk about them in the comments, and check out my Discord, which is a link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.